Hello, and welcome to this week's version of Old Testament and Ecology, the podcast or the video cast over on YouTube. This week we have several things from the website which we're going to be talking about. Three stories here that I want to discuss and see what you think. So let's just dive right in and talk about this. First off, we're going to discuss the fact that climate change is really, it's kind of politically motivated. It doesn't matter whether you're a conservative or a liberal or a moderate, somewhere in between those things. One's view on climate change is often politically motivated. And over at the blog, which is www.pt1.ecology.com, we talk about that. But before we dive into that, I should probably mention some things that I've developed. First off, if you go over to YouTube and you select the Old Testament Guy, all one word, Old Testament Guy, if you look for that over on YouTube, you'll find the channel, which is the Old Testament and Ecology podcast or video channel. Let's see, what else? There's a new email address, which is oldtestamentguy@gmail.com. So you can now email me some questions, thoughts, suggestions, maybe. Hopefully not any hate mail, but we'll see what happens here. That's oldtestamentguy@gmail.com. So, getting back into the discussion for this week. On November 20th, I discussed on the blog the fact that if you are a conservative, you probably think that climate change is fake. But if you're a liberal, climate change is something which is near and dear to you. It's something which you fight for, to curb climate change. But if you're somewhere in between, you're probably ambivalent or even apathetic. A recent Pew survey showed that fewer Americans think that global warming or climate change is real. And just in case you're wondering, if you go to the blog, otecology.com, there are links to each of these facts, that sort of thing. I'm a big believer in backing up what it is that you say, so you'll find links to everything that I claim on the blog, information to back it up. So according to that Pew survey, 57% this year think it's real, as compared to 71% last year that thought climate change was something that's real. Now I have a hunch this is because the favor that Republicans have won back with the American public. If you go over to realclearpolitics.com, the country was mostly Democrat in its party affiliation a year ago, but now it's pretty close to half and half, and some polls even show that Republicans have regained a majority of party identification in the American public. Now I have a hunch that the two are connected. If any of you listen to Rush Limbaugh, whether it's because you like him or it's because you like to make fun of him, then you'll know that he hates global warming proponents. When I listen to him on the radio, I've noticed he loves to poke fun at anyone who thinks that the environment is an issue. In fact, he calls them environmentalist wackos. He makes a big deal about that. But he does this from a politically motivated point of view. In his opinion, environmental legislation is just, it's costing people money. And he is against anything which would cost anyone any money. For the most part. That's a characterization, but for the most part, he doesn't want to spend any money that he doesn't have to spend. That way goods are cheaper, that way American industry can compete for the lowest cost anywhere in the world. And so he does that from a politically motivated point of view. Now, personally, I want to engage the environment from a Christian point of view, which is different from a politically motivated point of view. See, I'm an evangelical who thinks that I can worship God by caring for his creation. That leads me and Mr. Limbaugh to different conclusions regarding the value of ecology. But global warming itself has recently come under fire. Reputable sources like Der Spiegel thinks that global warming has stalled. Der Spiegel is a German paper, and just in case you're wondering, Europeans are usually not as conservative as Americans, so it's a big deal when a paper like that makes that statement. While the political left continues to cry for environmental legislation, political conservatives look at the recent leaked emails about climate science as evidence that the whole theory is a sham. Now, I find it funny that Al Gore appeared on NBC's Green Week episode of 30 Rock. In his cameo appearance, he almost seemed to mock his own agenda. He also appeared on SNL on Saturday as well, with kind of the same outcome, it looked like. So the public's reception has changed in regard to global warming and catastrophic climate change, but the debate still rages on. My personal opinion is influenced by chaos theory, that there are too many variables for us to accurately make models of climate change and even climate prediction and forecast. Now, my advice is that we put aside the political rhetoric and think rationally about things. Imagine that. Let's try to leave as little of a mark on the world as possible in terms of the environment, not in terms of influence. My faith drives me to want to take some steps toward protecting God's creation, or what some to the left would call engaging in environmentalism. Yet my motivation is not political, it's faith-based. So I guess that really the point I'm trying to make here is that when it comes to climate change, or really anything else for that matter, we need to sort through all the rhetoric and make an informed, faith-based decision on what it is that we think as Christians. Now, moving on, I had to write a paper about a year ago, a little over a year ago, for a class that I took that was describing my self-identity and how it is that I interpret Scripture, the presuppositions that I bring to the table whenever I'm making interpretations of others' work or of anything it is really. So I wrote this paper again for a class that I took at Texas Christian University's Bright School of Divinity. The class was Old Testament theology. It was taught by Leo Perdue, who has published widely on mostly wisdom literature in the Old Testament. He's a pretty well-known scholar, has edited many things that Walter Brueggemann wrote. So anyway, here's what I wrote. I'm privileged in terms of Spivak's view, G.C. Spivak. I won't pretend to be able to pronounce the names that the G and the C stand for. See, I'm a white male who grew up in a financially secure middle-class home. I grew up in a conservative, evangelical, Christian environment and still embrace a large portion of what that entails. I am educated and therefore struggle to accept the judgments of the uneducated. It's one of my faults. As a white male who has enjoyed financial security, I read stories in the Bible differently